"You're not welcome at my wedding, Dad." Ashley's words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood in her doorway, holding the suit I'd picked up from the dry cleaner. The navy blue one she'd helped me choose when she was still calling me the best dad ever. "Ashley, what are you talking about?" I managed to say, though my throat felt tight. Behind her, I could see Brandon lounging on the couch, smirking. His mother Vivian sat beside him, her lips pressed into satisfaction. "You heard me," Ashley said, crossing her arms. "The wedding is family only. Real family." She glanced back at Vivian, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Brandon's mother thinks it would be better if you didn't attend." I felt the world tilt sideways. 24 years of raising this girl by myself. 24 years of scraped knees, school plays, college tuition, and late-night talks. And now I wasn't family enough for her wedding day. "Ashley, I'm your father," I said quietly. "Vivian is more of a parent to me now than you ever were," she replied. The ultimatum came the next day. Ashley called while I was at work, her voice shaking but determined. "Dad, this isn't negotiable. If you keep pushing this, you'll lose me forever." I set down my wrench and walked away from the engine I was fixing. 23 years as a mechanic, and I'd never felt my hands shake like this. "What happened to you, sweetheart?" "It's who I need to be now," she said. "Brandon and Vivian have shown me what a real family looks like. They don't judge or control everything." "I've always accepted you," I said, but she cut me off. "No, Dad. You've always wanted me to be your version of perfect. The grateful daughter who never questions anything. Well, I'm done with that." Her voice grew harder. "Vivian helped me see that you've been holding me back." I leaned against my toolbox, feeling like someone had pulled the ground out from under me. "Ashley, please. Can we just talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about. It's them or you, Dad. And I choose them." The line went dead. By the weekend, Ashley had recruited the entire family. My sister Carol called first, her voice tired and frustrated. "Victor, what did you do?" "Ashley's been calling everyone, crying about how you're trying to ruin her wedding." "I didn't do anything," I said, pacing around my kitchen. "I just wanted to walk my daughter down the aisle." "Well, she says you're being controlling and selfish. Maybe it's better if you just step back. Let her have her day." Then came my cousin Pete, my brother-in-law Danny, even my elderly Aunt Rose. All of them with the same message: stop making drama, accept your fate quietly, let Ashley be happy. "You're embarrassing the whole family," my brother-in-law said. "She's a grown woman. If she doesn't want you there, respect her decision." I found myself standing alone in my living room at midnight, surrounded by photos of Ashley growing up. Her first day of school, graduation, college acceptance letter. In every picture, it was just her and me. Her mother had walked out when Ashley was 2. Now it felt like the world had won. The truth came out by accident. I was at the grocery store when I overheard Ashley's bridesmaid talking on the phone. "Yeah, it's crazy," she was saying. "Brandon's mom told Ashley that her dad was too low-class for their guest list. Said he'd embarrass them in front of their country club friends." I stood frozen in the cereal aisle, pretending to study nutrition labels while rage built in my chest. Low class. Because I worked with my hands. Because I didn't wear suits to work or have a college degree. Ashley actually agreed to it, the bridesmaid continued. "Can you believe that? Her own father. But Brandon's family has money, so I guess that's all that matters now." I left my cart in the aisle and walked straight to my truck. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the ignition. This wasn't about Ashley choosing love. This was about her choosing money and status over the man who'd given her everything. For 24 years, I'd worked double shifts to make sure she had what she needed. I'd driven a 15-year-old truck so she could have a reliable car for college. And now I was too embarrassing to attend her wedding. That night, I sat in Ashley's old bedroom, looking through photo albums. Here she was at age 5, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a Father's Day card she'd made at school. "World's best dad" written in crayon. Here she was at 10, wearing the baseball uniform I'd saved for 3 months to buy. I remembered the night she came home crying because kids at school made fun of her second-hand clothes. I'd worked extra hours for 2 weeks to buy her a new outfit. The joy on her face was worth every hour of overtime. When she was 16 and wanted to go to prom, I'd driven to 3 different towns to find a dress in our budget. When her date's father made a snide comment about my truck, I'd bitten my tongue and smiled. College had been the hardest. I'd taken a second job on weekends, doing odd repairs for neighbors. My back ached constantly, but every tuition payment felt like an investment. She'd called me crying during finals week freshman year, homesick and scared. I'd driven 4 hours just to take her to dinner. Now she was telling me I wasn't good enough to watch her get married. I decided to meet Vivian face to face. I found her at the country club where she played tennis, according to Ashley's social media posts. She was sitting in the dining room, perfectly dressed and cold. "Mr. Victor," she said when I approached her table. "I was wondering when you'd show up." "We need to talk about Ashley," I said, taking the seat across from her without being invited. Vivian smiled like a shark. "Ashley is fine. Better than fine, actually. She's finally learning what it means to be part of a real family. One with standards. I raised her for 24 years. Yes, and look how that turned out," she said, gesturing around the club. She had no idea how to dress properly, how to speak to important people, how to present herself in society. Thank goodness Brandon found her when he did. I felt my jaw clench. "She's a good person. She doesn't need fixing." "Oh, but she does," Vivian said, taking a sip of her wine. "She was so common when Brandon first brought her home. But she's learning. By cutting out her father. By prioritizing her future over her past. Instead of begging or arguing, I started watching. Really watching. I'd always been good at noticing details, it's what made me a good mechanic. Engines tell you their secrets if you know how to listen. I started paying attention to Brandon's social media posts. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, weekend trips. Ashley had mentioned he worked in finance, but his lifestyle seemed extravagant for someone in their 20s. I looked up his company. Small investment firm, only been around for 2 years. Then I noticed something interesting in one of his photos. A bill on the table at an expensive restaurant, partially visible. The date was from last month, and the amount was over $400. For one dinner. I started screenshotting everything. I also started driving by their apartment complex. Nice place, way nicer than what Ashley could afford on her entry-level marketing job. The rent alone had to be more than her monthly salary. So either Brandon was making serious money, or someone else was paying the bills. My gut told me it was option 3, Brandon was spending money he didn't have. Over the next week, I collected more evidence. Something wasn't adding up. The call came from an unknown number on a Tuesday evening. "Is this Victor Joseph?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Mary. I used to date Brandon Moses." She paused. "I heard about the wedding through mutual friends. I think you should know some things about the man your daughter is marrying. We met at a coffee shop across town." Mary was about Ashley's age, well-dressed, and clearly nervous. She kept glancing around like she expected Brandon to appear. "I dated Brandon for 2 years," she said. "Right up until 6 months ago. He didn't tell Ashley about me, did he?" My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" We broke up because I found out he was seeing someone else. A girl named Ashley. He'd been dating both of us for months. Mary pulled out her phone and showed me photos. Brandon and her at restaurants, on vacation, at family events. All dated within the last year. But that's not the worst part, she continued. Brandon has been lying about everything. His job, his money, his family's wealth. He's drowning in debt. He's using Ashley as his way out. What do you mean? This whole wedding is a setup. Mary had receipts. Bank statements showing Brandon's negative balance. Credit reports with maxed-out cards. Even text messages where he'd bragged to friends about landing a girl whose family will pay for everything. He told me Ashley's father was some kind of wealthy businessman, Mary said. When I saw the wedding announcement and looked you up, I realized he'd been lying about that too. I studied the documents she'd brought. $50,000 in credit card debt. Student loans in default. A car lease he was 3 months behind on. Brandon Moses wasn't just broke, he was financially toxic. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I tried to warn Ashley directly, and she blocked me on everything. Brandon told her I was a crazy ex trying to ruin his happiness. Mary shook her head. Your daughter seems like a nice person. That night, I spread everything out on my kitchen table. Bank statements, credit reports, photos, text messages. The picture was clear, Brandon was a con artist, and Ashley was his mark. But it was worse than that. Vivian knows, Mary had said. She's the one who suggested targeting someone from a middle-class family, who would be grateful for the attention. They'd hunted her. I tried one more time to reach Ashley. I called her workplace and asked if we could meet for lunch. She agreed, probably thinking I was going to apologize and beg for forgiveness. We met at the diner where I used to take her for pancakes when she was little. She looked tired, stressed. The joy that used to light up her face was gone. Dad, if you're here to make another scene about the wedding. I'm here because I love you, I said. And because I think you're making a mistake. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos Mary had given me. Ashley, Brandon was cheating on you. He was with another woman for months while you were together. She barely glanced at the screen. That's obviously fake. Mary is psychotic. She's been stalking Brandon for months, trying to break us up. Look at the bank statements. He's $50,000 in debt. Dad, stop. Her voice was sharp. I know what you're doing. You can't stand that I found someone who loves me. Ashley, please, just look at the evidence. She stood up abruptly. You're pathetic. So jealous of my happiness that you'll believe anything some crazy woman tells you. She grabbed her purse. Stay away from me, Dad. The wedding invitation arrived in my mailbox 3 days later. My own daughter's wedding invitation, addressed to Victor Joseph and guest. The irony wasn't lost on me. It had obviously been a mistake, probably sent automatically before Ashley remembered to remove me. I stared at the elegant cardstock, the fancy calligraphy, the expensive paper. Brandon Moses and Ashley Victor request the honor of your presence. Honor. That was rich. The venue was the Grandview Country Club. The same place where Vivian had told me I wasn't good enough for their family. The reception was scheduled for 6 p.m., with dinner and dancing until midnight. Open bar, prime rib dinner, live band. And suddenly I knew exactly whose fortune it was going to be. I called the country club and asked to speak to their event coordinator. Hi, this is Victor Joseph. I'm the father of the bride for the Moses-Victor wedding next month. I had some questions about the payment schedule. Oh yes, Mr. Victor. We've been looking forward to working with your family. The final payment is due 2 weeks before the event. Remind me of the total amount? $48,000 for the full package. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I started making calls. The florist first. Hello, this is Victor Joseph, father of the bride for the Moses wedding. I wanted to confirm our payment schedule. Oh yes, Mr. Victor. We're so excited for Ashley's big day. The final balance of $6,000 is due the week before delivery. The photographer was next. Mr. Victor. Ashley is such a sweet girl. The remaining balance of $4,000 is due at service. The caterer, the band, the cake decorator. Every vendor had the same story. Large bills, payment due just before or during the wedding, and all of them expecting payment from the bride's family. I sat in my truck outside the bank, doing math on the back of an envelope. Venue, food, flowers, photography, music, cake, decorations. The total came to over $70,000. Money that Ashley and Brandon definitely didn't have. That's when I understood the real game. They weren't just cutting me out of the wedding, they were setting me up to pay for the privilege of being excluded. The bills would come due, the vendors would expect payment, and Ashley would have no choice but to come crawling back to her father to clean up the mess. Except I wasn't going to play along. I started with the easiest target. The dress shop where Ashley had ordered her wedding gown. I'd driven her there myself 6 months ago, back when she still wanted me involved. The dress cost $3,000. Hi, this is Victor Joseph, I said when the shop answered. I'm calling about my daughter Ashley's dress. There's been a change in our payment situation. Oh no, is everything alright? I'm afraid I won't be able to make the final payment. We're dealing with some unexpected financial difficulties. I paused, letting the disappointment show in my voice. I hate to do this to Ashley, but we might need to cancel the order. The silence on the other end was telling. Mr. Victor, the dress is already altered and ready for pickup. If you cancel now, we can't refund the deposit. I understand. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. 2 hours later, Ashley called me screaming. What did you do? The dress shop just called and said you canceled my order. I didn't cancel anything, I said calmly. I just told them I couldn't make the final payment. If you want the dress, you'll have to pay for it yourself. You promised you'd help with the wedding costs. No, Ashley. You uninvited me from your wedding. Brandon showed up at my house that evening, drunk and furious. I was working in my garage when he stumbled up the driveway, his expensive shirt untucked and his hair messy. You think you're so smart, he slurred, pointing a finger at me. You think you can sabotage our wedding? I kept working on the carburetor in front of me, not looking up. I'm not sabotaging anything. Just not paying for it either. Ashley told me what you did with the dress. That's her dream dress, you bastard. Then buy it for her, I said simply. You're marrying her, right? Take care of your wife. Brandon laughed bitterly. With what money? You think I'm made of cash? My mother's already stretched thin with all the other costs. I looked up at him then, seeing the cracks in his facade. What other costs? The venue, the flowers, the band. He waved his hand vaguely. All of it. Mom's been covering everything because Ashley's family. He stopped, realizing what he was saying. Because Ashley's family what, Brandon? Because you're supposed to be handling it, he exploded. The bride's family pays for the wedding. I smiled slightly and reached for my phone, which had been recording. I sent anonymous copies of Brandon's recorded confession to 3 key people, Ashley's maid of honor, Vivian's sister who was helping plan the wedding, and Ashley's college roommate. I didn't add any commentary, just the audio file with a simple message, thought you should hear this. Within 24 hours, whispers were spreading through their social circle. I heard about it through Carol, who heard it from her friend who went to the same yoga class as Vivian's sister. People are starting to ask questions, Carol told me over the phone. About whether Brandon is really as well off as he claims. Someone said his mother has been asking friends for loans. Interesting, I said, not admitting to anything. Victor, what are you doing? Ashley called me crying yesterday. She's starting to doubt everything. Good. Maybe she'll start asking the right questions. The doubt was spreading like a virus. I heard through the grapevine that 2 of Ashley's bridesmaids had started questioning whether the wedding was really a good idea. Someone at Brandon's work had mentioned that he'd been asking about advances on his salary. The perfect facade was developing cracks, and all I'd done was tell the truth. Vivian's counterattack was swift and brutal. She hired a lawyer and had him send me a cease and desist letter, accusing me of harassment and threatening to sue me for interference with their family relationships. Mr. Victor has engaged in a pattern of stalking and harassment designed to sabotage his daughter's wedding, the letter read. He has made false statements to vendors, recorded private conversations, and deliberately caused emotional distress to the Moses family. The letter arrived on a Friday, delivered by a courier who made me sign for it. By Monday morning, half the neighborhood had heard that I was being sued by rich people for trying to ruin Ashley's wedding. My boss called me into his office Tuesday morning. Victor, I'm hearing some things around town. About you and your daughter's wedding situation. It's complicated, I said. Look, I don't care about your personal business, but if it starts affecting your work or bringing drama to the shop. He left the threat hanging. I felt the walls closing in. Vivian had money, lawyers, and social connections. All I had was the truth, and sometimes that wasn't enough. Mary called me that night with the ammunition I needed. I found something, she said. Something big. We met at the same coffee shop. This time, she brought a folder full of documents that made Brandon's credit card debt look like pocket change. Remember how I told you Brandon borrowed money from his mother's friends? Well, I kept digging. She spread papers across the table. It's not just borrowing. It's fraud. The documents showed a pattern of fake investment opportunities Brandon had sold to wealthy friends of his mother. Promising huge returns on cryptocurrency investments, real estate deals, startup companies that didn't exist. He'd collected over $200,000 from victims. He used the money to fund his lifestyle, Mary explained. The expensive dates, the car, the apartment. Everything Ashley fell in love with was bought with stolen money. Does Vivian know? She has to. Half the victims are her closest friends. There's no way she doesn't know her son is running a scam. Mary pulled out her phone. And here's the best part. In town. I wasn't invited, but I had other plans. I'd spent the week making calls to vendors, not to cancel anything, but to ask innocent questions. Hi, this is Victor Joseph. I just wanted to confirm that everything is set for tomorrow's delivery. Oh, there's a balance due? I thought that was handled. No, don't cancel anything. By 6 p.m., I was sitting in my truck across the street from the restaurant, watching well-dressed people go inside. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be elegant and perfect. Instead, chaos erupted around 7:30. I watched as the restaurant manager had what looked like a heated conversation with Brandon and Vivian by the front door. Then I saw Brandon storm out, his face red with anger, followed by Vivian who was gesticulating wildly. Ashley appeared in the doorway looking confused and embarrassed. She was wearing the pink dress she'd bought for the rehearsal. Now she just looked lost and humiliated as guests started filing out of the restaurant behind her. My phone buzzed with a text from Carol. Ashley just called me crying. Something went wrong at the rehearsal dinner. I started my engine and drove away. The next morning, Ashley's maid of honor called me. Tiffany had been Ashley's roommate in college, and I'd always liked her. She was smart and level-headed. Mr. Victor, I think you should know that Ashley spent half the night crying, she said. She's starting to question everything. What happened at the rehearsal dinner? The restaurant said they hadn't received any payment and couldn't serve the meal without full payment up front. Brandon's mother made a huge scene, claiming there had been a mistake, but she couldn't produce any proof of payment. Tiffany paused. Then Brandon started yelling about how Ashley's family was supposed to handle the restaurant costs. Is she okay? She's scared. And confused. She keeps saying she feels like she doesn't know Brandon at all. Tiffany's voice dropped to a whisper. Mr. Victor, I think she wants to call you, but she's embarrassed. Tell her she can call me anytime, I said. I'm still her father. There's something else. I did some research on Brandon after last night. Mr. Victor, your daughter is marrying a criminal. I know. You know? Then why haven't you told her? I tried. She wouldn't listen. Ashley called me at noon, her voice small and broken. Dad? Can we meet somewhere? Just you and me? We met at the park where I used to push her on the swings when she was little. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in weeks. The confident, glowing bride-to-be was gone, replaced by the scared little girl I remembered. Dad, I think I made a mistake, she said quietly. I didn't say, I told you so. I didn't gloat or lecture. I just pulled out the folder Mary had given me and set it on the picnic table between us. Ashley, I need you to look at these papers. Really look at them. For the next hour, I walked her through everything. The credit card debt, the fake investments, the cheating, the lies about his job. I showed her bank statements proving he was broke, court documents showing lawsuits from his victims. Ashley cried as she read. Not the dramatic sobbing of someone trying to get attention, but the quiet, heartbroken tears of someone whose world was falling apart. Dad, the wedding is tomorrow, she whispered. Everyone's coming. The vendors, the venue. How can I cancel everything now? Ashley, how can you not cancel? You can't marry this man. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. What if you're wrong? I pulled out my phone and played Brandon's recorded confession. Ashley was caught between two impossible choices: go through with a wedding to a man she now knew was lying to her, or face the humiliation of canceling everything at the last minute in front of 150 guests. So I made the choice for her. While Ashley spent the evening calling her bridesmaids and trying to figure out what to do, I went to work. I had Mary's evidence, Brandon's recorded confession, and most importantly, I had the names and contact information of every vendor involved in the wedding. I started with the venue. This is Victor Joseph. I need to speak with your events manager immediately. It's about the Moses wedding tomorrow. Mr. Victor, is everything all right? No, it's not. I have evidence that the groom is currently under investigation for fraud, and I have reason to believe that the payment for tomorrow's event may be made with stolen funds. I let that sink in. I thought you should know before you accept any payment tomorrow. The silence on the other end was deafening. Mr. Victor, are you saying we shouldn't proceed with the event? I'm saying you should protect yourself legally. If you accept payment that turns out to be the proceeds of fraud, your business could be implicated. I made the same call to the caterer, the florist, the photographer, the band. Wedding day dawned gray and drizzly, which felt appropriate. I woke up early and drove to the country club, parking across the street with a clear view of the main entrance. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. But instead of the bustling activity you'd expect, the parking lot was mostly empty. I watched as the florist's van pulled up at 10 a.m., only to leave 20 minutes later without unloading anything. The catering trucks never showed up at all. Around noon, I saw Vivian's Mercedes screech into the parking lot. She got out and marched toward the building like a woman on a mission. 10 minutes later, she came storming back out, her face purple with rage. She stood in the parking lot screaming into her phone. The band's van arrived around 1 p.m., but they didn't even get out. I watched the driver make a phone call, then slowly pull away. The photographer's car came and went without anyone getting out. By 2 p.m., it was clear that there wasn't going to be a wedding. Not because Ashley had called it off, but because there was literally nothing to have a wedding with. No flowers, no food, no music, no photographer. Just an empty country club and confused guests who were starting to arrive. I started my truck and drove home. I was drinking coffee in my kitchen when Ashley burst through my front door without knocking. She was still in her bathrobe, her hair a mess, mascara streaked down her face. "Dad, what did you do?" she screamed. "The vendors are all gone. There's no wedding. Everyone's at the club asking what happened." I set down my coffee cup and looked at my daughter calmly. "I saved you from making the biggest mistake of your life. By sabotaging my wedding? By stopping you from marrying a criminal." I stood up and handed her a manila envelope. "These are copies of federal fraud charges that were filed against Brandon yesterday morning. The FBI has been investigating him for months." Ashley's face went white as she opened the envelope. "What?" "He's been arrested, Ashley. This morning, at the hotel where he was supposed to be getting ready for your wedding. Some of his investment victims finally went to the authorities." She sank into a kitchen chair, staring at the arrest warrant. "But how did you?" "I didn't cause this, sweetheart. I just made sure the vendors knew what they were dealing with before they became part of a federal investigation." I sat down across from her. "Did you really want your wedding day to end with your husband being arrested?" Ashley looked up at me with shock and something that might have been relief. "Vivian? Also arrested. Conspiracy charges." The next few hours were a blur of phone calls, explanations, and damage control. Ashley had to face 150 confused wedding guests and explain that there wasn't going to be a ceremony. The local news picked up the story about the fraud arrests. But something interesting happened as the day went on. Instead of anger or resentment, Ashley seemed to be feeling something closer to relief. Like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "Dad," she said that evening, after all the guests had gone home and the crisis had passed, "I think I knew. Deep down, I think I knew something was wrong." We were sitting on my front porch, watching the sun set behind the neighbor's trees. Ashley was still wearing her bathrobe, but she looked more like herself than she had in months. But I was so caught up in the idea of being married, of having this perfect wedding, that I ignored all the warning signs. She turned to look at me. "I ignored you. You were in love," I said simply. "No, I wasn't. I was in love with the idea of being rescued. Of being taken care of by someone with money and status." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out the money was stolen and the status was fake. Ashley, I need you to know something. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it to protect you." She nodded, tears starting to fall again. "I know, Dad. And I'm sorry." 6 months later, Ashley moved back into her old bedroom while she got her life back together. It turned out that Brandon had put several bills in her name without her knowledge, so she was dealing with debt and damaged credit. But she was handling it with a strength I hadn't seen in her for years. She'd taken a better job, started therapy to work through the manipulation she'd experienced, and slowly began rebuilding relationships she'd damaged. "I can't believe I fell for it," she said one evening as we watched TV together. "All the red flags were right there. Smart people fall for scams every day," I told her. "That's what makes them effective." Brandon was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Vivian got 3 years and was ordered to pay restitution to all the victims. The money was long gone, but at least justice was served. As for me, I learned that sometimes being a good father means being willing to be the villain in your child's story until they're ready to see the truth. I'd rather have Ashley hate me and be safe than love me and be destroyed. The wedding that never happened became the best thing that never happened to my daughter. And in the end, that was worth everything. Thanks, Dad, Ashley said quietly that night. For not giving up on me. Never, I replied. That's not what fathers do.